Hello, y'all. This is my second presentation on my research project, my final presentation. Um, and my project is on deaf science identity. So remembering my first presentation, this was the scheme. I have changed things a little bit, but in general, here you can see, if you pause, you can see my research questions, the contexts, my intersectionality. I am not a deaf person. I do not know American Sign Language. I'm not fluent in Brazilian Sign Language as well. But here you can see basically the structure of my project and the reflexivity, my goal, my main goal, and my where I come from my theoretical framework from Gee, Brown, Gormley, and so on. Yeah, so this, if you want to pause and check, this is the what I presented on our first presentation. So my methodological approach, and I'm sorry, I'm not a very creative person to create all the super mediatic and interesting, full of images, presentations. It's just my mind usually works in this more topic, clearer um, ways. For me, it's easier to understand like this, maybe because of coming from physics. These are the presentations I learned to do more. But anyway, so my methodological approach, I come from discursive identity discussion that Brown developed in 2005. And from that, I will unravel the deaf science identity, bringing the works from Gormley that she has developed, although she hasn't developed a deaf science identity work as much as I want to do, because she doesn't connect it with the linguistic approach. And then I need to consider social linguistic approach and multicultural education, since whenever you have a student from another culture and another language, you are having a multicultural education environment. And a deaf student is a student from another culture. So yeah, we have multicultural education. And then I'll be searching for possible connections with translanguaging, multimodal approaches on linguistic expressions and all. But yeah, the ethical and political considerations, so that's a bunch of things. Considering that I'm not a part of the community, my intersectionality does not include being a deaf person. So I must respect the individual, the community, the culture, um, having minimal intervention in the sense of not disturbing classes, the STEM classes, though beyond my observations I need to be there, in a sense of not disturbing as much as possible, always guaranteeing privacy and anonymity during the interviews, um, and guaranteeing, of course, as IRB usually demands on educational research, that risks are not greater than those faced in participants' daily lives. But then there are potential conflicts, as I'm a hearing person researching deaf education, although I consider myself an ally. Some deaf individuals might not consider that adequate, that I am researching their community. Also, I am a foreigner researching US education. Some people might not also consider that adequate or something. That's always possible. And I'll be collaborating with and an ASL interpreter due to lack of ASL fluency, which can also raise questions on why haven't you learned our language, or you should know this to understand the community and the culture better. And I wouldn't disagree. I have a good understanding of ASL culture. Um, sorry, language culture as well, but language, since I have a good understanding of Brazilian Sign Language, but I'm not fluent in it. So this might be a potential conflict. But I always put myself as an ally of this minority, as I put myself an ally of other minority, most of minorities. Especially in this country, I am a minority as an immigrant, but also back home in Brazil, I'm also an ally of minorities, which I think it's my duty as a citizen. So yeah. So method and research design overview. I am I would consider, of course, GSU, because we have a strong deaf studies department, so it would be a urban state university. We have a strong deaf studies department with strong presence of deaf students. I have good access to gatekeepers. I have already not worked, but had access to one of them, because I have, I would say the main one probably. I have interviewed two students, not deaf students, but two students of the department for a project on my first year in the doctoral program. So I have access. The department has adequate linguistic support for deaf students. Not only the department, but the department is one of the reasons we have this adequate linguistic support. I would recruit students through email that this gatekeeper would forward to them, but also would put posters around classes that students have on the department. And if I have funding, if I have receive a grant or something, I would provide a gift card for example, for students to participate on the research, as well as for the interpreter. I am not sure if GSU would allow me to, or my advisor or someone, to like provide any kind of statement saying that this interpreter has helped in this project with this or that amount of hours. But if that's possible, I would love to do that as well, because it looks critical on your CV. So, and it is a phenomenological research, because I'll be looking at the experiences of the individuals, not only how they perceive these experiences, but what lies beneath these experiences, but also, but mainly, sorry, mainly how they perceive these experiences. It is a cross-case analysis, because I will have these cases that I will analyze, and then I will cross-analyze them. And I'll have two types of analysis: discourse identity, and I know it seems like it's like in a no, it's not. Discourse identity is a form of analyzing the content from Brown 2005. It's more focused on the discourse of the individual, and then we have Badin as content analysis that serves to analyze just everything. Using Brown, I would be focusing on the open-ended survey and the semi-structured interviews, and the open-ended survey would focus on demographics, the perceptions on science identity, the deaf identity, and the linguistic expressions they perceive and use, and see that their teachers and professors have allowed through their lives in classroom and in tests and so on. And the semi-structured interviews, the perceptions on science identity, deaf identity, linguistic educational approach, and so on. With Verdun, I would analyze the observation transcript. The observations would be developed on the mandatory STEM courses on non-STEM majors. So if you are in whatever major and you have to take, for example, a biology class that would fit this situation. And then my data analysis process would be what I have kind of a little bit different, like going beyond what I have done already, but still what I have done. So exploratory reading, identify rubric code. So I need to elaborate a rubric for this analysis, then reread, check, which is something I always do a couple of times on my research. Organize everything in color-coded tables. I like tables. I like color coding. Makes me understand better what I'm doing. Then I would check the categories that I have, review again my interpretation, cluster the categories, and work on interpretation results. And then what I have noticed about my process is that once I am done with clustering categories, I can work backwards and organize a visual of that. So yeah, but usually what I need to do on data analysis is that I need to follow the flux exactly as planned, because if it gets messy, I get very confused. Also something that is interesting and necessary is that the students, the deaf individuals, the participants would check the transcripts just for us to make sure that what we have transcribed from ASL to English is correct. The interpretation of what they say, I do not feel I would be very comfortable with them reading. I think they could do that at the end, like in a after we publish something. It's fine. They can have their critique or everything, but I think that we can have power over what we say, but not really how people interpret it. And I don't know, because if I have any doubts, I will check with them during the interpretation process. So sending them my interpretation, I don't know if I'll be very comfortable with it, but anyway. And trustworthiness and credibility, again, peers proofreading, which for me is not only about the proofreading in the sense of seeing if my process makes sense, my methodology, my methods, the way I present them, how I have developed my work is well done, makes sense, but also linguistically as well, because the structure of my writing sometimes can get confusing because English is not my first language. And so the way that I think that organizes the way that I write might get confusing for a English reader. So yeah, that's always helpful. Detail methodological approach and methods description, which is something that I think people sometimes go overboard, especially people that come from STEM. But yeah, I think detailed in the sense that allows some reproducibility. It's always interesting part of scientific process and publication. Consistent analysis, not going beyond what people are saying, although we can interpret what people have said indirectly, but not going way beyond that because it has to be consistent. Understanding that it's not going to be generalizable because usually we're going to have multiple. So yeah, and it's going to be purpose sampling. So it's not going to be generalizable. If I have like 4 students, it's going to be a lot of data. It's going to be a lot of work. Unless I have a big project with grant, then I'll have other researchers working with me. We can go up to, I don't know, 2050, but then that's a huge project. But usually, and even though it's not going to be generalizable, so I have to be very aware of that and have the participants check their transcripts to know if what we have transcribed is what they have said. Okay, thank you.